start this process by inviting His Grace, the Archbishop of Tanzania, to come here and present his brother. Thank you. So, do I say marhaba? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I've been asked to present a paper. I've been asked to present a paper on the role of religion in development, democracy, and peace in Africa. Before I continue, I would like to give thanks for the invitation, and for also opportunity to do something in this conference. This is my first time, and I had no any idea of such this group and the importance of the Truman Institute is doing, but I have found that it's very, very crucial, perhaps, to have this kind of gathering and discussion, because we are for having peace, but we cannot have peace without also having democratic governments. And so let me do my contribution. My paper will be having an introduction, then I'll do unpacking of the three concepts and their interrelatedness. That's development, democracy, and peace. They are interrelated, and so I'll unpack that. Then third, I'll go to the realities of Africa with respect to development, democracy, and peace. Then fourth, I'll go to the possible role of religion to development, democracy, and peace. Then I'll do a conclusion. So the topic of this panel is the role of religion in development, democracy, and peace in Africa. To prime our discussion, I will attempt to unpack very briefly the three key concepts in the topic, namely development, democracy, and peace, and their interrelatedness. I'll then skim through Africa's realities in terms of development, democracy, and peace. And thereafter, I will throw some preliminary proposals as to what could be the role of religion with regard to these realities, and then invite our engagement on this important topic. Now, development. Development in the context of this discussion is a socio-economic development. As such, development refers to the improvement of the lives of people everywhere through processes that promote wealth and economic opportunities, greater social well-being, and protection of the environment. The socio-economic development of a country is measured with such indicators as GDP, life expectancy, literacy, and levels of employment. I would add that development would have four dimensions, namely social, economic, physical, as well as spiritual. Democracy. Literally, democracy means rule by the people, and I'm glad that Professor David has the best, perhaps, meaning and explanation of the word or the concept of democracy. So the term is derived from the Greek demokratia, from demo means people and kratos means rule. So it is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. So democracy works, or more correctly, should work on the principles of equality of the members of the society, commitment to justice and fairness, and inclusiveness of all without regard to gender, race, beliefs, economy, or social status. Fundamentally, its essential process is the participation of everyone eligible to participate. So the underlying assumptions are that the members of a given society are able and want to participate in the process. That means they are knowledgeable enough and have access to the avenues of participation, and that they do want to participate. The fundamental assumption is that collective wisdom is superior to the wisdom of one or of a few, that the opinion of the majority is closest to the truth, that the collective opinion is as right as it could be, and that free and fair participation of those eligible is possible. And as a minimum condition, the continued existence of democracy is that a substantial proportion of both the demos, the people, and the leadership believes that popular government is better than any feasible alternative. Contrary to democracy, one could find monarchy, aristocracy, military rule, minority rule, or dictatorship. And these are often, although not always, suppressive. I share the view that democracy is both necessary and possible even in Africa, but also that certain assumptions of democracy are questionable. For example, what is true or what is right is not always determined by the majority. In fact, it would seem that democracy settles for the preferences of the majority, even if it is not true or right. Peace. Peace is much more than absence of war or conflict. It is the prevalence of broad-based common understanding of the importance of and commitment to social harmony, commitment to the principles of love, and a sense of being secure. It is the freedom from fear of violence and freedom from being a source of violence. We could say peace is being able to contribute the best that one has and all that one is toward creating a world that is steadily supportive of every member of the community or society, as well as availing the social, political, or economic space for others to contribute similarly. Thus, peace is a state of being aligned to invest in the pursuit of the good of everyone. Obedience to the commandment, thou shalt not murder, is much more than the avoidance of the destruction of life. It includes a commitment to preserve, protect, and promote the life of everyone, as well as the promotion of the sustainable welfare of others, including that of the coming generation. Now, the interrelatedness of development, democracy, and peace. Development, democracy, and peace seem to be intrinsically interrelated. Development is key to the possibility of maintaining a democratic culture. Development will often provide the economic means and the social condition requisite for democratic participation. The development would often mean a hypothetically minimum overall social maturity necessary for the confident and meaningful participation in the democratic process. But also, development is necessary for the fundamental sustainable peace to prevail. Sustainable peace tends to fail in societies, communities, or groups where there is rampant poverty and hugely unbalanced distribution of resources. And finally, without democracy, sustainable peace will be elusive. This is because the rich few tend to exploit the poor more and more and continue to suppress them in order to protect their wealth as well as their avenues for amassing more wealth. Those in power will use their wealth to get to and remain in power and use their position for personal gain rather than save the people who elected them. They buy voters, rig elections results, and hire their relatives to protect themselves. One funds rampant corruption. Such situations tend to breed sentiments of social dissatisfaction, anger, and conflict. Now, the realities of Africa. Now, with respect to development, democracy, and peace, first, there is a disturbing poverty and underdevelopment. In a 2009 report, 24 nations were identified on the UN Human Development Index as having low human development, and of these, 22 nations were in sub-Saharan Africa. Furthermore, although there are examples of great efforts being made in Africa to fight poverty and foster socio-economic development, the vast majority of the people of the world's second largest continent, after Asia, are still living in abject poverty, especially in the rural areas and the slums. Some statistics indicate that more than 218 million live in dire social and economic poor condition. Second, democracy is still lagging behind. A few good examples: Tanzania, Botswana, Ghana. These best examples are not only too few, but also are not good enough. There is still corruption there. In Africa, there are still self-centered leadership for the most part. There is still relatively too small proportion of the population that meaningfully participate in democratic processes. We witness monarchical culture, the tendencies to cling to power, and often led to cling to power. Many leaders remain in power or want to remain in power endlessly. We have the examples of Zimbabwe, Uganda, the DRC, Congo, Burundi, and the Kingdom of Swaziland. Many of our political and even religious leaders want to remain in power, even it is clear that they have lost the support of the vast of the majority of the people they are meant to save, such as the President of South Africa. Some of our electoral systems are clogged by tendencies of tribalism. The electorate too tends to support their leaders like tribal kings. Rampant corruption tend to delay or deny justice and lead to unequitable access to essential services such as healthcare, education, and general welfare. So we have a largely poor electorate socially and economically, a situation that leads to blind or tribal-based support for leaders and the vulnerability of the electorate during election, much like the Old Testament account of Esau, who, for a single vegetable meal, would sell his birthright to his treacherous young brother. The poor will sell their right to elect the right leader for a short-term soothing of their suffering from hunger and unrealized socio-economic dreams. We have a largely an educated electorate. The vast majority of voters in many countries cannot read or write and have limited or no awareness of political systems and the power in their hands to influence them. Thirdly, underlying lack of peace. There are situations of conflict and instability in some of our countries. We find citizens heckling their presidents, bishops, and other leaders. I'll argue that there is widespread dissatisfaction, anger, and frustration in many African populations. Now, the possible role. The possible role of religion with regard to development, democracy, and peace in Africa. Africa faces the dangers of religious extremism, particularly from certain branches of Islam. Of course, this is not peculiar enough to Africa, as it is a global issue. The connection between religion and conflict is in the process of being thoroughly explored. In the popular mind, to discuss religion in the context of international affairs automatically brings to the forefront religious-based conflicts. Is almost like here in Israel and the Palestine conflict. Now, in terms of development, religion can provide a balanced view of development. True development must be the embrace of the development of whole person and not just the development of material things. That includes the spiritual development of individuals and communities to which the contribution of religion is necessary. Furthermore, corruption is a spiritual issue, not just a social, political, and economic one. So religion has a critical role to play in the fight against corruption. Corruption, materialism arising from the postmodernism, which has eliminated God in people's lives. Now, in terms of democracy, religion has great potential to contribute to. The democratic values must include higher values of humanity, namely love, honesty, integrity, higher view of the human life, compassion, friendship, family, and care for God's creation. Religion has an absolute essential contribution to make in this regard by inculcating and modeling these values. Furthermore, religion can use its platform of general societal trust to promote support for principles, not just parties and people, and to advance commitment to transparency, truth, fairness, and respect. And in terms of peace, religion can play, and indeed has played, a significant role. For example, the World Council of Churches and All African Council of Churches mediated the short-lived 1972 peace agreement in Sudan. In South Africa, various churches were an integral part of the struggle against apartheid and the peaceful transition. Similarly, the Rome-based community of St. Egidio successfully mediated the warring factions in Mozambique and brought to end civil war in 1992. However, it should be noted that religious or faith-based peacemaking does not have to be dramatic in terms of their outcomes. Interfaith dialogue has great potential as a mechanism of resolving violent conflict and the rebuilding culture of peace. With a focus on apology and forgiveness, while keeping issues of social justice to the fore, interfaith dialogue has a unique element of religious peace building. And here I take an example of what we have done in Tanzania. I'll explain there. Since 2013, we had what would you say, we had the church persecution. So church was being persecuted. It was not until when we top leadership, religious leadership, when we came together, sit together, and started to dialogue, to discuss. As we are seated here, we'll sit in Dar es Salaam somewhere, and we sit different religious leaders, and we discuss of what is happening and how it affects everybody, regardless of whether you are Muslim or you are Christian or you are a Hindu. So as we continue to dialogue, then today I would say now we have peace. There is no more church persecutions. So that for me is real a positive contribution of religion towards bringing not only peace but a democratic part. So religion may in fact be necessary in peace building when communal identities, particularly religion identities, are key causal factors in violent conflict. Traditional democracy may be severely limited in conflict transformation. Certain conditions in situation of conflict lend themselves to faith-based intervention. Not every situation then you can intervene by using faith-based intervention, but some. And so if religion is a significant factor in the identity of one or both parties to the conflict. Two, if religious leaders on both sides of the dispute can be mobilized to facilitate peace as we did in Tanzania. If the protracted struggles between two major religious traditions transcend national borders. Third, if religious leaders are usually associated with a respected set of values and are seen to have moral authority for opposing injustice on the part of the governments. If religious leaders have the ability to rehumanize situation ravaged by a protracted conflict, which is essential for promoting reconciliation among conflicting parties. And lastly, if religious leaders have a sense of calling and faith, which often inspire perseverance in the face of major obstacles. Now, in conclusion, I will therefore add that clearly religion does have a role to play in relation to development, democracy, and peace in Africa. The question is, now, what needs to be done in order for religion to play its role fully in this regard? To play fully in this regard. How, for example, could religious leaders be equipped to contribute to development, democracy, and peace building? And how could believers of varied religious groups be equipped to reinterpret their religious principles that would contribute to the development, democracy, and peaceful coexistence with people of other faiths? I invite your thoughtful contribution and participation to the discussion. Thank you.